Welcome to One Week Critique's Critique of the Week, where we discuss the development of a single piece of literature from its earliest forms to a final one, or one that the author is particularly proud of. Today, I'm here with singer-songwriter Jake Haverlack. Welcome, Jake.
Hello, Adam. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we're discussing Jake's song Shelter from his EP, The Forgiving Tree. So Jake, you perform Shelter under the name Limn. So can you tell us a little bit about who is Jake Haverlack, who is Limn, who are the various other people and projects that you happen to be or be under?
Yeah, sure. So which one makes more sense to start with? I guess who I am, as you said, Jake Haverlack. I'm a musician, multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, teacher. It's technically my day job right now. I'm a teacher. I love it. I don't want to sell it short saying that. I have performed over the years under many different names and iterations. I was in a band called Sedgwick for about 4 or 5 years. Poets and Peasants back in the college days.
Yeah.
The Funky Freaks. I can't remember. Did you ever play with us in that?
A couple times, not standing.
In Chicago, I've played with, who have I played with? I played with a couple of different psych rock artists around town, Jude Schuma and B. Forrest, and I played bass in the hip hop band Dash Tone for a couple of years, and the math rock band Spooky Generator. These days, I'm sort of juggling back and forth between which moniker I want to go under, whether it's my own name or this Limn idea. The genesis for the Limn name was just, I was reading a book about dreams, and the author is James Hillman. It's a really cool book, The Dream in the Underworld. It's rad. It's got some really cool ideas about how to look at your dreams, and I think he used the phrase to limn something into focus, and I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And I looked it up, and it basically means to depict or paint some sort of image, right? So it's his whole thing with dreams, it's very image based, really staying with and exploring the image of what something is, rather than how it's your dad or your ex or your unresolved trauma or whatever, but just if the snake is playing accordion and singing you a Russian folk song, to just go into that rather than extrapolate some meaning. And I really liked the way it looked on page at the time, and just kind of ran with it because it felt, and still does in some ways, it felt like something I could, a Swiss Army name, I could put out ambient stuff I've been working on, or I could put out more singer-songwriter, or I could do more band work. It felt kind of multi-dimensional in that way. But I'm the older I get, the more I'm thinking there is something about just owning the name that you were given and that you go by in the rest of your life, so to speak. And so right now I'm I don't know what name the next thing I put out is going to be under, whether it's this Limn thing or whether it's just Jake Haverlack. But yeah, that's kind of me.
Right. Well, we'll talk about the problems of branding later. But meanwhile, we're here today to talk a little bit about the song Shelter in particular. Can you read us Shelter in its earliest form?
Yeah. I got the original handwritten lyrics in front of me. All right, ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
June drips on the windowsill, and maybe I should keep this closed. Wet wood will rot the frame, but how was I supposed to know? Maybe it's something that's yearning to be exposed. There in the kitchen light, the outline of another ghost. I skip my step between the cracks, but draw my life within the lines, hungry for a steady pay that feeds me and my soul in kind. Maybe it's something that's yearning to ease my mind. Nobody tells you you're never running out of time. Somewhere beneath the paint lies the story of the first to leave this place. How the hell do I leave this behind? Lord, let me dig a hole that I can never find. The sun shines on the roaring shore and holds the thunder in the air. Blood rolls off a sweaty leg, but no one really seems to care. Maybe this feeling has always been hiding here. Nobody tells you you never need to be repaired.
So, Jake, why did you choose to share this particular piece with us?
I think of the stuff that I've worked on over the past couple of years. Well, this one felt like there was enough meat on it, so to speak, to talk about in terms of process, and process in terms of like these days, a lot of the songs that I'm writing, I'm trying to keep a little bit simpler, like really see how much I can get out of like 2 or 3 chords. Yeah. And this was written from, I don't know, a way. I still feel like I do write this way sometimes, but there's just as much like musically going on, I think, as there is like lyrically in my life, that it felt like that I could tie that element in a cool way, not just be like, well, it's these 3 chords and that's it.
Cool. So speaking of the lyrical in particular, we talked about this a little earlier, but I see you as a kind of enigmatic lyric writer. Not quite in the way that someone like Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen can be a little enigmatic or abstract, but in a sly way, right? You have this uncanny, canny thing going on, where, for instance, I'd pointed out that it's not June rain that drips on the windowsill in this song. It's June itself drips, which is kind of a motion of time, right? Like the time itself is dripping and then gets extended in the way that you think about the wood rotting, which actually happens over a much longer period, but might be sped up by rain dripping on the windowsill or an open window. That you skew things like, my thinking is the step on a crack, break your mother's back thing has something to do with the way that your step moves in this song. And I'm hoping that you can talk a little bit about that experience, if that for you is sort of liminal, or that's the way you're sort of experiencing the world, or if that's something you're drawing out in the editing process to sort of bring the poetical subconscious toward the top, or if it's something else entirely and I'm just spitballing bullshit at you.
Yeah, that's a rad question. That's an awesome question. It's really it's really interesting because my process with writing has changed a lot. When I was younger, when I was in college, I used to like sleep next to a thesaurus because I wanted to like find as many like crazy, obnoxious to sing words as I could. I was really obsessed with artists like Bon Iver at the time, he'll fucking make up words. He doesn't care. Yeah. And I thought that was like the way to access the subconscious, was to like sing stuff that doesn't make sense in the hope that like one day in performing it, it'll like whoop, sort of phase into focus in a new way. Whereas now the way that I write is a little bit more like, it almost feels kind of like a well that I like draw from, and it's like when it's there and it's like the water's coming, just to sort of like get out of the way and let it happen, and then when it's not, to just like stop and trust that. So in the case of this one, like that It's funny because the first verse was just like, that was literally like, I was in the apartment I was in at the time, and it was June and it was raining, and that just sort of poured out in term, like, with what I was playing at the time. And as with most things I write, you know, I recorded it and then was like, oh, that might be something, and then listened back like the next week and was like, Jesus fucking Christ, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is terrible. And then you know, some part of me was like, well, hold on, let's come back to this. And um sort of started to like build upon it from there. Yeah, it's weird. This one feels very much like similar to when I like sit with dreams that I've had, you know, thinking about like it's almost like a story unfolding or something, rather than like, where should this go, to just like sit with that and see sort of like what comes out of me, like wondering where this should go. And if that makes sense.
No, I think that totally makes sense. I think to follow up on that, and maybe in a way that doesn't necessarily add much to it sort of pouring out of you, one thing I'm interested in, and this is true in this song, it's true in a lot of Jake Haverlack songs, in my experience, is that, let me give some context. I think in poetry or literature in general, especially in things that are static and on the page, fiction, nonfiction, there's always someone that you're addressing, which is sometimes, right, in a kind of Frank O'Hara way, someone that the poem is to, like in a sort of epistolary way. And sometimes it's just the fact that you're writing the text assumes that someone's reading the text, and so that you have an audience. Most music, most modern lyrical music has something of that quality. I think your work interests me a lot in that its orientations sometimes feel very personal and addressed to someone, maybe the speaker of the lyrics, maybe a second person, sometimes toward me as the listener. And I'm really fascinated I'm fascinated with how you think about who your songs are going to, and if that kind of audience question is part of how you do your writing, especially given that you're going to perform the work eventually on stage. I know you're doing less of that these days in coronavirus times, but
That's another awesome question. I think, and this is sort of what's like morphing about my way of writing, is like these days I'm exploring a little bit more of like the, I don't know, like narrative or something like that, like what it, you know, like Bob Dylan's a great example of this, because he has just as many songs about like other people as he does like about himself.
yeah,
You know, and he like, especially what the fuck is the record, like bring it on, bring it back home, the one with like Maggie's Farm and Subterranean, Homesick Blues, and you know, he really starts to like blur those lines between like writing just as much about like other people as himself, as like also like fictionalizing himself, which I think is a really interesting thing. And that's kind of the direction I feel myself going in with this. This was a little bit more like yeah, the characters that I feel like I was talking to were I was like writing from the perspective of myself in the future, talking to who I was when I was writing it. talking to the building that I was like living in. That was one of the like keys to kind of breaking this song, was like bringing it back to like talking to my living room in this building that I was living in at the time, and sort of like personifying like the space. And just trusting, like, because I remember this was something I learned when I was in Sedgwick. We had one song that that we used to play called Mirrors, that I wrote, that was the first one of the ones that I'd really written for that band, that felt like it sort of went into space that I like wasn't cool with. That was I got away from this idea for a while, but there's I've been coming back to it a little bit, this like feeling that I'd have, where like I'd write something and I'd be like, oh, I can't say that, like that's you can't sing that to people, that's going to be too much. And that being sort of the exact thing to like lean into a lot of times. And just in like exploring that, that was the only song I ever had people come up to us on the road and be like, that I really connected with the stuff you were saying, and starting to think for myself, like, okay, well, if I trust whatever like feeling is coming up, and even if I'm just talking to myself, maybe it won't happen again, but at least once in my life, I've had an example of people like connecting in this way. So maybe it'll happen again, but feeling that like there's, or just trusting that there could be resonance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I asked that question, actually. I'm not going to over speculate on that. I'm just going to let that one sit. While I'm letting it sit, I think is an ancillary thing. A lot of your work does tend to be, I've known you for a decade now, and yeah, I know. But I've known you for a decade, and I've never really experienced you to be a sad person. I think a lot of your music is about loss and at least intellectual suffering. I don't have a specific question about this. I've thought about how to craft a specific question about this, and I don't have one in particular, but I am interested in the fact that a lot of your music is surface level sad in that way, but it often comes back around to something sort of hopeful or indirectly hopeful, as this particular song does, right? You don't, in the end, need repair exactly, right? It's a thing that maybe is desired, but it isn't of necessity, which I'm very interested in hearing you talk about, writing an imagined future self talking to a present self, which is really trippy in a way that I can't place exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been really going back and forth on the word hope a lot in the past year. Sort of weighing the difference between like hope and faith, and feeling out like which is like so for to kind of go into it in terms of like an image. For a while I was really obsessed with Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And turning over the idea, right? Because the whole thing is at the bottom of the box is hope. And for years taking that as like, that's the hope that the evil and whatnot will go away. And through talking to some other folks about this, like coming to this new understanding. I'm not saying any one of them is correct, but just turning it over and seeing that, like, the truth is hope is in the box too, as far as like the evil shit getting in the world. And like hope, in a sense, being like the thing that kind of glues, that keeps that is like fundamentally a part of the evil stuff, so to speak, and is at the root of it, is at like the bottom of it. And trying to explore this idea of like, because hope for me my whole life has always been about like the hope that things will get better.
Yeah.
right? Um, and that's the difference I'm sort of grappling with still, especially in light of everything going on, you know, because it's not just the lockdown. I mean, that the the civil unrest is worsening by the day, and the sort of understanding I've been making with it is that it has to get worse before it's, I don't even know, get better, but just it has to get worse before it's going to change.
Yeah.
Um, and so this, yeah, this idea of like faith instead of hope being like the thing that, it's like what carries you through, right? Because I got to a point in when I was like 27, 28, just a couple of years ago. You know, I'm not like old, but or that old. This I realized that just I was carrying hope around in everything. I was carrying hope around like my vocation and my dreams of like being a famous musician or something like that, and like that all of this hope was like was trying to make things better rather than find like a kind of acceptance or something in the way that things are.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And that's sort of the turn that happens at the end of this song for me. Is it's like the what's the Leonard Cohen line? There's a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. You know, it's like, yeah, fucking hell, dude. That's it. It. I wrote fucking 3 verses in a bridge to get it what this dude just got in like one line, you know. Really speaks to the genius of Leonard Cohen. But that's the whole sentiment. Is it's like the exact things that make us like, that wound us and like and break us are the very things that make us who we are. And I was carrying for a long time this hope that like that would go away, rather than faith about like, you know, I could keep living in spite of it or something like that. And so that I think this song was like a turning point in that idea for me, but that is something that I carried for a long time. I mean, I remember all the songs I wrote in Sedgwick were to some degree or other about like, one day I'll be a better person. And like, if I just stop being shit now, I'll be a better person one day. And like just reckoning with that and starting to see like, yeah, why am I constantly like chasing this like better version of myself? And that's what was trippy about personifying the future version, right? Is it's
Yeah.
like the elders, the real elders that I've met in my life. You know, I had this teacher in high school who was sort of like the first like mentor that I would say I've ever had. We talked about more than just what she was teaching in class, you know.
Yeah.
There was just this like infinite level of like openness and acceptance from her that I started to get as I got older, of like, oh, this is it. It's not about like necessarily making yourself better, but just like being just, yeah, finding peace with like just where you're at, you know?
Word. Oh, thanks for sharing some of that.
I was like, I hope that's not too much.
No, that's I think that's a lot like your feeling about singing certain songs in front of people that I'm glad that you shared some of that. I because there's a lot in there and I don't have tremendous insights. I'm going to move on to a more practical semi-lyric, semi-musical question, and say, so you have a set of lyrics. You have the last time I saw one of your apartments, you had a lot of different kinds of equipment uh, going on and that you're experimenting with. You make a lot of different kinds of music. So how do you integrate all of those feelings, those narratives, those lyrics, the music that you're making, and then how do you decide, okay, now this is a thing I'm going to record, or now this is a thing I'm going to get on stage and sing to other people and play for other people?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think for me, a big part of it is like, do I get lost if I'm like singing it in my living room? You know, because I have some songs that it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it's a nice song. I don't know that I need to like share this with other people. That's something I'm trying to trust more, because I remember earlier in my 20s, it was like anytime I wrote something, I was like, this has to be like
Yeah.
song. You know, it was really hard to just like write stuff just to like write and kind of forget it. Um so that, yeah, it's like, do I get kind of lost in in singing it and performing it? um Recording is a whole other beast, because like the EP I sent you, um I recorded this in like a month or two at the shop that I used to work at, Avenue and Guitars. Rest in peace. uh, I recorded this whole thing in about a month and a half, and a large part of it was just to see, like, I was sort of sick of this idea that like I needed like other people to make stuff happen. You know, I needed like I needed to spend a lot of money, or I needed like all these other people to like um sort of help these visions come to fruition. And I just wanted to see if I could like record and mix and master um, the whole thing. And it was, I'm thinking about revisiting it, but at least the version that I put out has just been physical only. And it was just to have something to take to Japan, so I could also make a little bit of money there. And also to just see, like, is this possible? Is this something that I can do? And uh the answer was a little frustrating to hear, because it was kind of like, yes, you idiot, like, it's just you don't have to rush it in this way, you don't have to freak out about it all the time, just
Yeah.
take one day at a time. But the recording space around that was really cool, because in having it be kind of rushed, I was trying not to second guess, and I was trying not to like overdo. That was a big thing that I was guilty of in the past, is like, you know, I sort of, you know, you could say I like majored in jazz bass, but
Yeah.
guitar is my first instrument. But I played, you know, I played keys, I played drums. um and so there's this like desire to kind of bring all of that to the table. And um I mean, the guy who really helped me crack recording this and a lot of this stuff was there was two teachers at the shop I taught at. There was me and this guy named Leroy Bach, who was stupidly overqualified to be teaching there. I mean, he was in Wilco for 8 years, and he's played with like Liz Phair and Andrew Bird, and he has a Grammy. And it was just like, the fact that he's like a friend of mine now is still really cool and really weird. But he he had really good ears and really honest ears listening to these arrangements. And his whole thing, which I needed to hear at the time, was like, do, do, does what you're adding take away from what's already there? Because if it does, then it doesn't need to be there, right? You only add things to like to enhance, right? Don't add stuff just because it's there, right? So we had whole songs that I was recording drums on, that I'd go over and, you know, we'd do a listen through, and he'd be like, take the drums out, see what happens. And I'd take the drums out, and it was like, you know, nothing had changed. It was like suddenly the song could breathe. And I was like, but I just spent 4 hours recording those fucking drums. What the fuck? And so he really helped me start to hear things in more of like a gestural way. And then another reason why I picked this song, now that I'm thinking about it, now that we're here, is because like, of the ones that I recorded on that EP that I did for Japan, this was the one that like really like worked the most as far as the arrangement. You know, every song that I put on that, I had a part of me that was like, yeah, there might be a different way I want to do this, so I'm not quite ready to put it on Spotify. And this was the one that it was like, this is it. This is the arrangement. And start like part of what worked so well about that is like thinking about the instrumentation in terms of like characters, right? So like in the recorded version, there's a Wurlitzer part that kind of creeps in and out, and some little ambience and stuff like that, and that sort of being the personification of the like ghost that pops up in like the first verse, and sort of like that being like this way of like alluding to its presence, so to speak. Because that's the shit that I've been obsessed with ever since I started writing music, is like the weird where do they intersect, like lyrics and music, whether it's harmony or you know, instrumentation or whatever. I had too many experiences in the past of like, you know, the songwriting class that was taught at Knox was like, where do they modulate to at the bridge? And it was just looking at these like Tin Pan Alley songs, which are great melodically, but just garbage lyrically. You know, there's like nothing going on because it was a factory. You know, they're just like stuff out. Or like we looked at a Paul Simon song and we only looked at the modulation and didn't look at like, what is he saying right before he goes to it, you know? And that to me is really like the interesting thing about where the two go. Cause like just now reading it, you know, I kind of hate the way it sounds as like a poem. You know? It's like writing poetry, you know, I wouldn't want to rhyme this much, but there's something about the rhyme when you're singing it that like reinforces or like glues it in a way that you, when you're just speaking it, like kind of falls flat.
No, I feel that completely. I mean, not that I hate your face is a poem, just that it feels very, very different.
Yeah, it does.
Without the music, which I think is the perfect segue to ask. You don't have your Wurlitzer with you, I assume, but can you play this for us as a song so that we can hear how it works in its rightful performance setting?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jake Haverlack, Shelter.
Let's scoot this forward a little so you can see the guitar. June drips on the windowsill, and maybe I should keep this closed. Wet wood will rot the frame, but how was I supposed to know? Maybe it's something that's yearning to be exposed. There in the kitchen light, the outline of your mother's ghost. Well, I skip my step between the cracks, but draw my life within the lines. See, I'm hungry for a steady pay that feeds me and my soul in kind. Maybe it's something that's yearning to ease my mind. Nobody tells you you're never running out of time. Now somewhere beneath the pain lies the story of the first to leave this place. But how the hell do I leave this behind? Lord, let me dig a hole that I may never find. Sun shines on a roaring shore and holds the thunder in the air. Blood rolls off my sweaty leg, but no one really seems to care. Maybe this feeling has always been hiding here. Nobody tells you you never need to be repaired.
Jake Haverlack and or Limn. So Jake, it's hard to follow up that performance with a question. So let me go to the obvious one, which is obviously you're a very developed musician. What advice would you give to younger musicians or artists who are looking to do the kind of lyric mixed with musical combination that you do?
I mean, oh God, yeah. What advice would I give to a younger person? I think I would. I mean, try shit is the first one. Just like try a bunch. Here, one sec. Try a bunch of, just try your ideas, try like all the different crazy things that come to mind and see kind of where that inspiration or whatever takes you. Like I remember with this particular song, one of the coolest pieces of feedback I ever got was a friend of mine, the two people I was in Japan with at the end, my friend who I was touring with and his fiance, we were talking one night and she was telling me that one of the things she appreciated was that the first time she heard me sing it, she thought that I was singing it wrong. She thought I messed up at the bridge because it gets kind of weird.
Yeah.
And she said on the second and third listen, she realized that it was just not what she was used to hearing. And I struggled with that too when I first wrote it, was feeling like, oh, is this like good? Like this, I hear this, but I don't know if it like sounds good. And so just to not be afraid to like try weird things out, to try and fail. I mean, that's like, I feel like that's a lesson that I grow more and more into the older I get, is to just like I'm so glad at this point that I spent $15,000 on a fancy record to just break up with the band and like not really talk to any of those guys anymore on the other side of it, because there's a lot of like life you can glean from those failures, and like those are just as important as any moments of success. And also by try shit, I mean like if you're listening to this in America, like we live in a country where this is not going anywhere, this like Corona shit. We got at least another year, so nobody's going outside in the same way, or shouldn't. So now's a great time to be like exploring what it means to like do this stuff on your own, and also try shit, because it's like that model is sort of disappearing, of the like need to be in like an expensive studio. I think it's been disappearing for a while, but it's like becoming more and more apparent. The other advice I think I have with that too is like something that I didn't want to admit when I was younger, is like invest in yourself. You do have to do that. You can't, like I wasted years playing games trying to get other people to record my shit because I just didn't want to, drop the $1,000 to buy an interface and a mic and some other shit. But it's like you do have to invest in the tools you need to make what you want to make. This is for music specifically. Yeah. And the last, I think, piece of advice is, study your craft, actually learn like what you're doing. I was teaching some people at the shop who were like producing, for people like Chance. I taught one lady who was like a semi-famous, toured the world every summer DJ, who just like didn't know anything about like even like holding an instrument. And I believe on like a fundamental level, like the at least with music, like a true artist should be able to you should be able to captivate by yourself before you add all that other stuff in. I think that other stuff is really cool and can be really important, but learn your craft, and really like, you don't have to be excellent. You don't have to be like, not everyone's going to be, for guitar, like I'm never going to be Julian Lage, I'm never going to be like Pat Metheny, but you can find things that are your own in what you do. And just, be good at being you. I don't know. It feels so Hallmark, but like the older I get, the more I'm like, yeah, that's fucking it. There's all this weird shit I saw on Hallmark cards growing up that I was like, oh, that's dumb. And you get older and you lived some of that shit and you're like, oh, fuck, they get it. I don't want to give you my money, but you get it.
The slight reverb from the song is adding an authority to those statements significantly. So on that note, Jake, those who have listened to our program and who follow us know that they can find us at 1 Week Critique on almost anything, or at oneweekcritique.com. That's the number one. I imagine folks don't know so much where they can find you if they're finding you here. So where can they find Jake Haverlack, Limn, The Forgiving Tree? Where can they have you as a teacher if they want to learn from you? Where can they follow your music?
Yeah, I was thinking about this because I don't have a website. I don't. I'm sort of working on one now because I see the benefits of it. I see the use in my life. Not that it's bad to have a website. I just like didn't think. I didn't hold myself to enough of a standard to have one before. But I think for this stuff, the place that people can find me is directly. If just Jake, JAKE.HAWRYLAK @gmail. If you like what you heard and you want to reach out directly, I'll send you the whole thing. But right now, that's the only place to get it. It's not on Spotify or anything. I want to meet the people who are interested right now. Yeah, it might change. If it does, I'll let you know. You can put something else up in the bio, but for right now.
Amen. On that lovely note, thank you, Jake Haverlack, for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Adam. This was really cool.